almost as exciting as the word but is the word now. And Ruth 2:1 begins with now. There's a change in the story is what now means. Or an important new character is being introduced. Now, also translated, it so happened that, which is meant to make us giggle. It almost sounds like a coincidence, but we know there are never coincidences with God. Naomi had a relative on her husband's side from the clan of Elimelech. So he's a kinsman of her husband's, not a blood relative of hers, definitely not a blood relative of Ruth's, which is really going to matter. He is a man of standing. He's a stand-up kind of guy. You know what that usually means? Usually means he's a war hero. He's a very strong guy compared to Wimpy and Frumpy. Just hearing, oh, a man of standing, the audience is going, ah, all right. No more dead guys. No more Wimpy Frumpy guys. We got a man of standing here. It's also translated a prominent, rich man, a wealthy and influential man. So, he's rich, he's heroic, he's powerful, he's respected. Okay, I'm so in. Have you thought of somebody? Because I'm kind of working with Hugh Jackman myself. Strong, powerful family guy. I'm digging that. But of course, that's not who we're talking about here. A man of standing, his name is Boaz. I love the fact that his name is at the end of the sentence. Sidebar, as a writer, I know you always save the best and most important word in a sentence for last. And God, the ultimate writer, saves Boaz for the end. It's like an exclamation point every time his name shows up. It also means, his name means fleetness or pillar of strength. I want you to watch for something about Boaz. Look at everything he does and everything he says, and understand it is what your Redeemer says and does for you. Weigh everything Boaz says and does and say, oh, Jesus has done that for me. Incredible, this story, because it's about real people, real, living, breathing people from 3,200 years ago. But it also transcends the ages. Every generation has loved Ruth, and every woman has fallen in love with Boaz. Who couldn't? Oh, baby, wait till you're done with this guy. You're going to say, I have a nice husband, but I want Boaz, And actually, that's okay, because you can have your wonderful husband if you're married, but you can have your Redeemer above all. He is for all of us, whatever, single, married, divorced, widowed. He is our husband, our bridegroom Redeemer. He's our Boaz. And so weigh everything he does as something your Redeemer does for you. Okay, back to the women. We just had a little glimpse of Boaz. The storyteller, I'm telling you, is so brilliant. God tells the best stories. Because he just gave us a glimpse of this hero on the heels of all that sorrow and misery back in Moab. So we don't lose hope. So we go, oh, I bet we'll see him again. And Ruth the Moabitess said to Naomi, let me go to the fields and pick up the leftover grain. Wow, she is not wasting any time. Now, we aren't told when this happens, but I'm thinking it happened kind of right away. They get to town. We aren't told where they live, but remember, they had a house before they left. So they've come back, apparently, to some kind of property. I can't imagine what it looked like after 10 years, but I do know the cupboard was bare. The fridge was empty. The first thing you do when you move somewhere is what? Go to the grocery store even before you unpack. So they need food right away. So the sense we have is there's been no real passage of time. Maybe it's the next morning. I can't believe it's been much more than that. So Ruth says, let me go to the fields. I'm thinking Naomi must have taught her the custom of the land, which is described in Deuteronomy 24. When you are harvesting in your field and you overlook a sheaf, do not go back to it. Leave it for the alien, the fatherless, and the widow. And see, Ruth is all three. She's an alien. She's a Moabite. She's fatherless in the sense that there is no description of her father. And remember, what did Naomi say? Go back to your mother's house. So we don't know for sure, but the dad surely was not a present father. And, of course, she's a widow, so she is fully qualified to go out and glean. And she says, behind, this is who she's looking for, behind anyone in whose eyes I find favor. She's looking for a godly landowner with mercy in his eyes. Well, she gets no argument from Naomi because she's starving. So she says, go ahead, my daughter. Now, that's good. All that time she was saying, go back, go back, go back. Finally, she's saying, go forward, go ahead. And my daughter, tender. The phrase my daughter appears in the book of Ruth more than anywhere else in a book of the Bible. My daughter, which is so incredible when you realize she's a Moabitess. And yet, both Naomi and Boaz keep calling her, my daughter, my daughter. Can we get this from God? That he is saying to us, you're mine. You're my daughter. Oh, those words, so powerful. Now, she doesn't warn her about the dangers or wish her well. She just says, go. So Ruth went out and began to glean in the fields behind the harvesters. Well, there is nothing glamorous about this work. It is hard work. It's very humbling and requires a lot of bending. She's walking along the edge and picking up. Bend over, pick up. Bend over, pick up. And there are other gleaners. So I suppose there'd be a little bit of jockeying back and forth about, I saw that first. I don't know, but there were lots of them. It was sweaty. You got dirt under your fingernails. Not really romantic, exciting work. But she was willing to do it out of her love for Naomi. As it turned out, oh, love that phrase. This is the storyteller winking at the audience. Ruth found herself working in a field belonging to Boaz. I'm telling you, he's the punctuation on all these sentences. Now, we already know him. So already the listeners then and the readers now are going, oh, good, that guy. And just then, Boaz arrived from Bethlehem. Oh, just then. Oh, it just so happened. She just happened to pick his field, and he just happened to come out that day. Because he would have lived in Bethlehem, but gone out into his fields or beyond the walls of the town. They would have had, even as small as Bethlehem is, they would have had walls around it to protect them from bad guys, as it were, wild animals and all of that. So the fields were beyond the walls of Bethlehem. And he went out to see everybody. Here's his first words. Look at this. The Lord be with you. First words. Now, what did we say about the first words of a character? Tells you everything you need to know. The Lord. That's this guy's heart. Be with you. He's such an encourager. Would you not love for your boss to show up at work and say this? First words out of his mouth or her mouth. The Lord be with you. Anybody have that when they go to work? Just checking. No. I mean, it'd be better than a box of donuts. It would. The Lord be with you. And I love how they respond. The Lord bless you, they called back. So picture them scattered all over the field working. They see Boaz. They lift their heads. They hear his blessing. And they respond. The Lord bless you. Already, Boaz is cast in hero lighting. Now, we have lights in the studio today, but not because I'm a heroine. It's just so you can see me. And you know, they do this in the movies. When you watch a movie and the hero comes onto the set, your eyes always go to him. And it's not because he's handsome, and it's not because he's famous. It happens even if he's an unknown and not all that good looking. They give him special lighting. In a crowd scene, he's the one to look at. This is our Boaz. Boaz asked the foreman of his harvesters, whose young woman is that? Not who is she? Whose is she? You see, women belong to somebody. You were the wife of, the mother of, the daughter of, the servant of. Who she belonged to? Though I have a personal thought. He may be asking, is she spoken for? The truth is, she isn't anybody's except God's. God is who Ruth belongs to. The foreman replied, she is the Moabitess who came back from Moab. Now, the first time I read this, I giggled. I thought, well, duh. You know, the Moabitess from Moab. It's like, so she's the American from America. But actually, you could come from Moab and not be a Moabitess. So he's making doubly sure that he gets it. She is a Moabitess who came here from Moab with Naomi. And he describes, the foreman does, what happened when she came to the field. She said, please let me glean and gather among the sheaves behind the harvesters. Very polite request. She already had the law of the land on her side, but she still asked permission it just tells us something about Ruth. She's a very special woman. She went into the field and has worked steadily from morning until now, except for a short rest in the shelter. Well, this is really descriptive. I mean, for just a gleaner, this guy's really paid attention to her. He's seen how persistent she is, how hardworking, how diligent, how uncomplaining. No whining. Well, Boaz has heard enough. He is already making a beeline to our young woman from Moab.